I like Mercury retrogrades. There, I said it. I said the controversial thing. But the truth is, Mercury retrogrades shouldn't be feared. Neither me nor you should be sitting here scared of Mercury retrogrades, because it's a pause in the rhythm of our thoughts. And it's when time bends a little bit so that what was left unfinished can come back into our view so we can rethink, rewrite, and reconnect. And hello everyone, I'm Amia from Resonance Astrology, and this video is gonna be somewhat of a Mercury retrograde survival guide. I will explain why some people have a harder time with Mercury retrogrades, and also why it might hit you harder sometimes than other times, because not every Mercury retrograde is gonna impact everyone the same way. And I'm also going to explain you how to work with it, the good things about Mercury retrogrades, and also how you can work with Mercury specifically during that time so things can at least somewhat seem a bit more seamless in your life. Because it is true to a certain extent that Mercury, as an archetype, will always stir up things because Mercury just serves as the jester, as the psychopomp. So of course, things are going to be a bit chaotic, but if we embrace that God, and we're going to talk about this later, then really, I think Mercury retrogrades can sometimes be a really good period and you can come out stronger than before. So, let's first talk what kind of the gift is of the Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrogrades happen 3 to 4 times a year, so it's not something completely out of the blue and completely crazy. It's really a phenomenon that occurs more than any other retrogrades, to be completely honest. And imagine if Mercury, the planet of communication, of thinking, would never go retrograde. We would never have time to do all the rethinking, reorganizing, reconnecting, rewriting, all the you can think of. This is what retrogrades are for. And when we think of that in the terms of the planet Mercury, well, it's a perfect time to reflect on our lives. If Mercury didn't go retrograde, we wouldn't really have time to sit down and reflect. And that would be pretty bad, because our thoughts aren't linear, and sometimes we need to just sit down and reroute our minds and our thinking processes, and sometimes also the way we communicate to others, to ourselves, how we are showing up in our heads, in our minds, how we are communicating in our own body and soul. It's not always with other people. So this can be a good thing. And also sometimes old people or ideas can return for closure. Okay, everybody's always afraid their ex is going to come back. Sometimes this is a point for closure, and it's actually an invitation to clear things up one last time so you can sleep more peacefully at night. Okay, it's not always a bad thing. And for everybody that is sincerely afraid of their exes coming back, I'm always like, of what? Of what are you afraid? Of your inability to say no? Like, I don't fully get it, Obviously, okay, I'm not talking into I'm not going into the realm of abuse right now. Okay, that is a whole different topic, and I'm not talking about that right now. But I know there's always people freaking out about their exes and them coming back. But I feel like a lot of time people are just scared of their own inability to say no about it, or they feel like they're gonna engage in their self-destructive patterns again. That is a lesson. If that continually keeps occurring for you during Mercury retrogrades, that is something you should be learning, not the other person. And sometimes you're somebody's Mercury retrograde. What are the odds that maybe you're coming back into somebody else's life and you're the embodiment of their Mercury retrograde? Have you ever thought about that as well? And of course, the good old tech glitches always happen during Mercury retrograde. A few years ago, my brother was buying a TV, and I told him, almost as some sort of joke, to not do it because it's Mercury retrograde. Of course, he was laughing about it, but then he got the TV and it didn't work. It didn't work. And then he was like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna replace it. And I was like, well, Mercury is like still post shadow period. Like maybe you shouldn't do that right now. We're not out of the woodworks yet. Lo and behold, he went and replaced it. And it was broken again. So I kid you not, Mercury retrogrades do really be like that sometimes. And oftentimes they are just periods of revision, okay? And these times are very, very important. Imagine you're doing a play. You have to do revisions so you can perform better. You have to sit down and go through the performance again and again, go through the script again and again. That's a good thing, okay? I feel like oftentimes Mercury retrogrades are preparing us, so then when after the fact, like after the aftermath, when Mercury is out of post-shadow period, there is actually a lot more clarity in how we want to play certain characters and roles in our lives in a much better way. And now let's talk about why some people feel it stronger than others. These will depend on multiple factors, but one big one, of course, is your natal Mercury is being impacted. In this Mercury retrograde specifically, it's going to be everybody that has a Mercury in Sagittarius and everybody that has a Mercury in Scorpio, because Mercury retrograde will go back and forth between these two signs. Even more important if you have Mercury in Sagittarius at the early degrees or Mercury in Scorpio at the later degrees, because this is where Mercury will be going retrograde. You probably won't feel it so much if you have a Mercury in Sagittarius at like 29 degrees or something like that, or early Mercury in Scorpio at 3 degrees. So yes, that is of course always going to be impactful. People that have their Mercury in the sign that Mercury is going retrograde in. That's like a very personal revision at that point. Then, of course, all Gemini and Virgo risings, because you folks are simply ruled by the planet Mercury. So you're always impacted by whatever Mercury is doing. And of course, also by the retrograde periods. And if your chart ruler turns inwards, it's always also time for you to let life reorganize itself as well. But you're probably equipped better than other signs to deal with this, since you are ruled by this. So it's something you're experiencing every year, all the time. And then we can do an even added step, and that is seeing, are you in a Mercury profection year? Profection years are very interesting because if we have Mercury as our Lord of the year, so to say, it's obviously going to impact us much more what Mercury is doing that time. So if you're in a profection year that is either Gemini or Virgo, then Mercury is going to be your Lord of the year, and all Mercury retrogrades will be impacting you much more for that time period, if you not already are a Gemini or a Virgo rising. So look out for that. And if you don't know what annual perfections are, this is a timing technique where basically you look at your chart, okay? You take your personal chart, and let's just say you're a Sagittarius rising. So every year that you're born, you enter into a new profection year. So when you're born 0 to 1 years old, you're going to be in your first house profection year. And your first house, since you're a Sagittarius rising, is going to be Sagittarius. So Jupiter. Jupiter is going to be your profection year, Lord. Then we go one step further. Okay, you enter your second profection year. And what comes after Sagittarius? Capricorn. So then Saturn is going to be your Time Lord of the year. And so it's really each year you enter a new house. And of course it goes round and round and round. Okay, so everybody that turns the same age is going to have the same profection years. But depending on which rising you have, these are going to look a bit different. But if you happen to fall into a Gemini or Virgo profection year, Mercury is going to be your ruler, aka Mercury retrogrades, going to impact you much more deeply that specific year. Then we have the houses. If you have Mercury going retrograde in one of the angular houses, which are like the Grand Cross type of houses. It's the first house, the seventh house, the fourth house, or the 10th house. These are going to be usually much more impactful because these topics of these houses, let's say first house is the self, seventh house is the other or partnerships, fourth house is the home and family, and 10th house is your work and career. These are usually topics that are known for taking up a lot of room in our lives. They're pretty much central. And so if the Mercury retrograde is happening in any of the angular houses, they usually are or tend to be a bit louder because these events become a bit more visible than when it's in the other houses. And then, of course, if you have your natal Mercury in retrograde motion, this can easily happen, right? Because Mercury goes retrograde so many times in the year. It's very likely that some of you have natal Mercury in retrograde motion. This can actually feel natural or productive. Oftentimes folks that have natal Mercury retrogrades, they tend to do pretty well when Mercury is in retrograde motion because it almost feels like a homecoming. It's like their natural state. So actually their lives can sometimes seem a bit easier. It's the same thing that happens people that have natal Venus retrograde. Sometimes when Venus is retrograde, these people actually experience a lot of good things in their life during that period. So if you do have natal Mercury retrograde, I am very curious. Leave it down in the comments below if these time periods in your experience have felt more natural and productive. And I'm going to add even some other thing that I didn't write down here, but I do think it's important to talk about it as well, just because I have realized this myself, and that is secondary progressions. This is another timing technique, and it's, how can I explain this in very simple ways? Basically, every day after your birth equates to 1 year of your life. And so we can track certain planets. And most likely, eventually at some point in your life, Mercury will turn retrograde in your natal chart. This might be when you're 30 or when you're 50 or whatever, you know. And for me, Mercury turned retrograde, I think like maybe 2 or 3 years ago in my secondary progress chart. And I did notice that after that happened, I also experienced Mercury retrograde periods as much more productive. So that is also something you could potentially watch out for, and maybe even watch out for if your natal Mercury progressed into a different sign. Like maybe you have natal Mercury in Scorpio and it progressed into Sagittarius already, then maybe this could actually impact you a lot more than you would think it would. So that's just what I want to mention here. And then again, you know, I just want to briefly talk a bit about the archetype. Mercury really is the psychopomp. It's the messenger between worlds. It's the only, like Hermes was the only little guy that could basically travel from the upper to the underworld. And he was very quick. And that is also kind of what happens in real life. Mercury moves so quick. Mercury moves a lot quicker than the sun. That's why they're always playing like catch and fetch with each other. But and it's also the reason why Mercury isn't really ever one sign give and take away from the sun. Mercury can never sextile the sun or square the sun or trine the sun or even oppose the sun for that matter. Mercury can conjoin the sun, and this is the Cazimi moment of the retrograde, which is also very important. It's usually the time where really that shift happens. And in this way, Mercury is hard to catch. Mercury is hard to even see. And even in the myths, Mercury he had actually a very similar way of being cloaked like Hades, and Hades was also often seen as the invisible one, and they both used to wear these helms which kind of granted them to power to not really be visible. It's like they almost had many faces and you could not so easily identify them, like they were taking on different roles. So basically almost like a many-faced god, you could say. And Mercury, I think, really just embodies the archetype of being the messenger, of being like, I'm simply here to deliver the message. And that's also where the saying, don't shoot the messenger, comes from, because it's just the messenger. He doesn't have anything to do with the query and what is happening and who is delivering the message, like who initiated for him to deliver the message. He is just delivering it. Don't hate the message. Now I'm saying it wrong. I wanted to make a remark, but I was like, that is wrong. I'm being affected by Hermes right now. Yes. So there is a bit of like in its retrograde motion, the mind is walking backwards to retrieve meaning, and it's like a mental pilgrimage inside, and you could really think a bit of it like going into the underworld. Like Mercury is in the underworld at that time, and when you're in the underworld, you're probably focused on being more internal, being more isolated, but in a good way. Like just the retrieving function is just much more prominent. And yes, so how to work with it, okay? How to work with Mercury retrograde. Journal, reflect, and reorganize. These are always good things to do during that time. You don't have to get your thoughts out during that time. It's usually actually even good if you think before you speak, because miscommunications can easily happen during that time. You could say something, but then the other person misunderstands it in a completely different way. I often, when there's Mercury retrogrades, I usually take extra caution to when I send texts that maybe might be misunderstood. And obviously that takes a bit of self-awareness to realize if that is the case. Sometimes I even make memos, because oftentimes, and let me know if you notice that too, but when we write messages, we don't know how these people read it in their minds. For example, am someone, I tend to read messages in a lot more, like in a more aggressive tone than they maybe are. Like I have this voice in my head where sometimes I feel like, oh, they're saying it in a much meaner way than it was actually intended. And then I can feel attacked when that's like not even the case or the intention behind it. So sometimes for that reason, I also just like to send memos, or maybe even just call, because I feel like when you just even hear the voice of someone, it's easier to like extract and filter out what they actually mean, and maybe basically take it in a different way than how it would have been if you read it with that inner voice inside your head. That sometimes can be a bit misleading, right? So watch out for that. Definitely, if you do plan on having conversations that are deep or that are very specific, maybe you want to clear something up, and Mercury retrogrades are actually pretty good at having these types of conversations. Just be extra careful that like write things down beforehand, okay? Just be clear on what is it exactly that I want to get across. And sometimes, to be completely honest, I think the time in the retrogrades are these times where we might be having these follow-ups and debates, but then the clearing actually happens afterwards in like the post-shadow period, and once Mercury is fully out of the woodworks. So, and I really don't want to like underestimate that time, because I feel like that time is equally as important as the clearing up. Like it's almost like this has to happen so the clearance can kind of come through. And I know it might like seem very annoying during that time, but it is actually necessary to then bring more clarity. So yes, and I do think it's a good time, okay? Like reaching out to clear things up is really not always a bad thing, and can bring clarity in the long run. So yeah, I feel like people shouldn't be so scared about their past lovers or friends reaching out. Sometimes it's you as a past lover or friend reaching out to them, for all I know. And again, it can be a good thing to bring in more clarity, to realize more things, which otherwise you wouldn't. So I am a proponent of that. And really, again, ask yourself, what are you scared of? If someone is reaching back out, what exactly is it that you are so scared of? Like reacting wrong, not like, take back your power, okay? Like you don't even have to react. You don't have to say anything. Or you can just say, oh, thanks for reaching out. I actually like really don't want to talk to you at all. That's really, it doesn't have to be as crazy as some people make it out to be at all. And if you run into old people, I think oftentimes it's just the fear that we come across in a different way. You know, it's like this, when you go out in public and then you meet an old school friend and it's exactly that day where you don't look styled up, where you don't wear any makeup, and where you kind of just don't even wear the best clothes, and you're like, oh yeah, I had to see them right now. Now they're thinking I'm not doing well in life or something like that. But again, it's just our own judgment. It's just our own perceived judgment of how we think somebody is perceiving us, or what they're thinking of us, or what they're saying to other people behind our backs. And I really don't think it's that crazy deep, you know? I mean, maybe it might be in some circles, okay? I don't have a lot of drama people in my life. If you do, certainly I would understand how this could be a real concern. But you know, you don't have to hang around with those people. Unless you live for the drama, then, you know, what can I say? What can I say? There's nothing that I can do to hold you back from that, okay? It's your life at the end of the day. But I want to bring some sense here, where the fact that I feel like people are unnecessarily freaking out about their exes returning, when I just really don't think it's such a crazy thing when you realize that you have the power to not respond, or to block, or to just even be kind and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. I do not want to talk to you. Again, I think what most people are scared of is their own inability to like overcome certain circumstances in their lives, because they're probably scared of reaching back out, and then it turns like, you know, you get back together with your ex or something like that. But again, if that is something that is happening over and over again, especially during retrogrades, then, you know, please, by the love of God, like, if you know that is happening, then it's a you problem. It's a you problem. And you need to honestly sit down and reflect, what measures do I need to take so I'm not constantly getting in this thunderstorm of repeating this same lesson over and over again, because it will come into your life over and over again until you learn what it is and step out of it. Yes. Another good thing, back up your devices. Always good advice to back up your advice. Heck yeah. Always good advice to back up your device. Now I said it correctly. And just laugh at the delays. Mercury loves when you laugh at it. I sometimes feel like Mercury retrogrades, it's like I'm feeling hide and seek with Mercury. And it's like, who's gonna outsmart who first? And every time I catch Mercury first in its shenanigans, and I laugh about the ridiculousness of it, it's almost like the Mercury retrograde has no power over me anymore. Because like I'm vibing with the jester god, you know what I mean? So just laugh at it. Just laugh with Mercury. Don't, as soon as you take life too seriously during Mercury retrograde, you lose. I'm telling you. And honestly, if there's something that is out of control, like, just what else can you do? Okay, that's at least personally something I never understood. Like when the train is delayed, or there's just nothing you can do about it. I'm like, why would you get angry in such a situation when it's out of your control? Like, why would you get so angry when there's literally nothing you can do about it? For me, if something like that happens in my life, or I get somewhere and like the hotel is canceled or whatever, I'm like, okay, life is sending me on an adventure and on a quest to find something even better. Maybe you had reservations at a restaurant and they mix it up. Whatever, go to a better restaurant. Maybe you meet the next love of your life there. Who the heck knows? Just like go in for the ride. I really And it's so funny because I'm such a serious person myself sometimes, but in these situations where I know that I don't have any control, it's so easy for me to just accept the ride and accept the mishaps and laugh about it. So I urge you to do that as well. Let silence speak. There's a bench where I live somewhere that says there is a lot of noise. There is a lot of noise, but only one silence. Go search that silence. And I think especially that is a silence that can be found in nature the best. So spend more time in nature during that time, because it's so easy to get overstimulated by the technology and by information and misinformation and whatnot. Do make sure to touch some grass and be outside during that time. Yes, retrogrades are also very good for listening, not specifically reacting. So just taking in information, just like take in the information that is given to you, observe, okay? I think observation, especially with Mercury and Scorpio, is a big one, but also in Mercury and Sag. Both Scorpio and Sagittarius really like truth, but I feel like truth is something, especially in people, it's revealed over time. And the best thing that you can do, especially if you're getting to know someone, is to observe. Don't make up your mind, just observe. Let their actions, their words speak from themselves, and then you can decide based on what they're doing or not doing, or saying and not following up with, what to do with that information. Yes, this is advice from a Scorpio. Let people show you who they are. Let people reveal to you who they are. Also, one thing that you can do, and now we're getting into the realm of relational astrology, is to petition Mercury. You can do prayers with Mercury. Sit down on Mercury Day, which is Wednesday, ideally even during Mercury Hour, which you can check on an app called Time Nomad, because it's going to be different for every time zone, and recite the Orphic hymn. And there's some other hymns. I think the Peacatrix hymn is a bit more about like specifically petitioning. You can petition Mercury. You can pray to Mercury to ask for protection. Light, I think orange is one of the colors of Mercury. Light an orange candle. That is usually very good. You can put the sigil of Mercury on your palm or on your hand or something, and just ask for protection during that time. Do prayers for Mercury if you have to travel during that time. Do some prayers if you have to sign a contract, just so you always have Mercury on your side during that time. Just so you know that everything is happening for the higher and greater good, so to say. And even if mishaps happen, even if travel goes awry for whatever reason, just, you're gonna know that it's a good thing at that point. And that maybe you have been protected from a far worse fate. You never know. So do work with the gods, okay? Mercury is not out there in the sky plotting his hands against you, wishing for your demise. None of the planets are. Okay? But Mercury is a jester, and you can talk to him. Please talk to Mercury. There's also, with contracts, by the way, personally, I don't have it here right now, but I have a special pen that's the pen that I sign contracts with. I don't sign anything with any other pen. I have a specific pen just for signing contracts that I always put special intention prayer to before I sign anything. I take it with me if I know I have to go sign a contract somewhere else. Of course, it happens sometimes that I'm out and about and I didn't know I would have to sign something. Well, then, it cannot be helped. Shogunai, as they say in Japan. Shogunai. Then you still do a prayer, because it's the intention that counts. And that's how you protect yourself. Always do a small prayer before doing any of these things. And that's really what I have for you guys. That's my Mercury retrograde guide. I hope you found it useful and you can extract and take something from it. Let me know down in the comments if you have any more tips or any more guidance or experiences that you have encountered with this jester god in your life. I always love hearing stories. And if you want to connect with me, All the links are going to be down below. I'm also very active on Instagram right now and on YouTube, always Instagram and YouTube. You can also find my website under resonanceastrology.com. It's also going to be linked down below if you're interested in any readings. I do them, but you have to reach me via mail because the booking link is not working, but they are available. You just have to take some extra steps right now. I'm very sorry, but I promise you it's worth it, okay? People have been saying many good things. I have the reviews are up on Instagram. You can see them there. I'm working on reprogramming my website so it is a bit more professional, but I'm not going to do it during the Mercury retrograde right now. But just so you know, you can always reach me for readings under my email. So that's what I have for you guys, and I'm sending you much love, and we're going to see each other soon. Bye.